Hello and welcome back to the Realty Funnels Podcast. I'm Kevin Cahill, and I'm so delighted to have with me today one of the top real estate trainers in the United States. This is a guy who has been training for over a decade. He's one of the go-to trainers across California Association of Realtors, the National Association of Realtors, and top brokerages around the country demand that he come and train their agents. John D. Reyes, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, well, Kevin, I appreciate the opportunity, and it's a privilege to be here with you today.
The privilege is all mine. Thank you so much. So, John, you're in California. Tell everybody a little bit about your background, where you are, what you've been doing, and how you've come to this wonderful position as a real go-to trainer for all things for real estate agents.
So I'm based out of Southern California, specifically the Inland Empire. If you guys don't know where that's at, it's about 50 minutes if you were to drive with normal traffic east of Los Angeles. And I'm in a city called Ontario. My background is that I've been in sales 1099 since I was 18 years old, graduated from college. The day I graduated from college, obtaining a business degree from a state school here, I entered into the mortgage industry because of a recommendation of a friend. When I got into the loan business, I quickly started working with real estate agents, and I did not want to stand in front of a realtor and ask for a loan and say, hey, I got the best turn times, the best fees. Instead, I wanted to get their attention in a different way, and I started holding trainings. And these trainings were marketing trainings, sales trainings, and that's what really laid the foundation for what I do today, which is now training for about 15 years in the space now, training real estate agents on how to build their business, leveraging things like digital technology, video marketing, and the tools and resources that they already have in the palm of their hand.
So you come from this background in the mortgage industry, but you are also a licensed realtor. You still work with a team of agents who are working with home buyers and home sellers now. You still have your finger on the pulse of what's going on. And yet you found that one of the best ways to really get attention, both as a mortgage officer and as a realtor, was to provide value first.
You know, there's that book that was written by Gary V, right, which is Jab, Jab, Right Hook, and it's all about giving value to your clients. And unbeknownst to me, that's what I was already doing. I feel that he just made it very clear to say there's a specific business model that's wrapped up in what I was already doing, because part of the way that I built my business was sharing and giving insight, giving information to my clients, which I'm referring specifically to the real estate community. Now, I'm a real estate broker in the state of California. I'm a licensed mortgage loan originator as well, and I'm an active real estate investor. So I have my hands a little bit in all aspects or in many aspects of the business, but the idea and concept behind what I do for whether they're buyers or sellers or real estate agents is that I really focus heavily on the giving insight, because I am a big believer that the more that you educate, the more that you empower, the more positioned we are to build trust with our clients. And people want to work with those who they trust. And the moment that they trust you, it just makes it a much more simpler process. And so even though I say I've been in sales practically since I was 18, a young adult, I don't like the salesman aspect of when somebody just goes in and tries to go for a close and get your clients to say yes 3 times before you ask them to sign the contract. Those, in my opinion, while they may work, it's just not part of my mantra. I really go for more of an organic sales approach with my clients, which is more consultative, informative, educational, and it's served me well. I mean, I'm 20 years in the business now, and it's the same thing that we've been doing since day one.
I love it. For the longest time, I have had a mentality, which is that I don't chase my ideal clients. My ideal clients chase me. And that has always been because I've put out some type of, we call them lead magnets, some type of value where they receive this value from me. It might be a free report, an ebook, something to help them understand what they could do before they put their home on the market, top 10 things to do when you're thinking about selling. They get this free report, and then they raise their hand to me saying, hey, I got your free report and I'd like to talk with you. All of a sudden, I'm no longer selling. I'm simply a trusted resource already. providing the value, just a continuation of that conversation.
I think it's key to establish yourself as the authority. And when you can give information and it's understandable, it's clear in what message you're wanting to convey to your prospect, then it is something that you can repeat, but it's also proven. I mean, there's been business books written for 100 years with a very similar idea of us going on out and gaining influence and gaining friends, right? Like Dale Carnegie type concept.
Yes, I love it. One of the earliest books, I probably read it when I was like 12, and I probably listened to it on cassette tape while I was out delivering my newspapers on my paper route when I was a young kid. And that whole notion of how to win friends and influence people, it's so important that you do become that authority in the local market area. How do you help real estate agents become that authority in their local market area?
So ideally, when I'm speaking to a real estate agent, the first thing I'm going to tell them is become comfortable and familiar with the product and service you're selling, because you could be a great salesman and you might be able to go on out and have a killer month, maybe a quarter or even a year. But in order to build a sustainable business, you have to be knowledgeable in this space. So first thing I would say is learn your contracts. So many real estate agents are completely clueless about their contracts. And I know this as a trainer. I will stand in front of an audience, 50, 70 agents, and I will ask very specific questions about the contract. And for those who try to answer, in many instances, the result is the same. They'll chuckle, they'll laugh, they'll smile when I press a particular point, and then they'll look to their fellow realtors to say like, hey guys, help me out here. And so that's one key thing that I would say is learn your contracts. And I can't take credit for that. That's from my very good friend, Joseph Limo. That's what he talks about, is knowing your contracts. And then at the same time, having a really good, firm familiarity with the steps that are involved, the process. Because now that you have a good understanding, you can look at it to say, well, what are the hiccups? What are the potential pitfalls? Where are my clients going to be frustrated? And you can position yourself even better to not just have the conversation with your client, which is great to do so they can be better prepared, but also you might be able to maneuver around that. Once you have those two key things, now it's simply about broadcasting the message. More people need to know about the value that you can bring to the table. And that's where I get excited about, because we already own these resources like our smartphone. So many people, consumers, well, I'll say pretty much everybody, we walk around like a bunch of zombies on our phone, right? Kids are always on their phone. They're eating at the dinner table, and some of the times, in order to keep the kid quiet, parents are like, hey, play on your phone, look at your iPad. That's just the world that we live in. Not that we have to agree with it. So if this is what people do, then it just makes sense. Promote your business where people are looking the most, right on their digital device. At the same time, people have short attention spans. I don't necessarily want to go on out and read a whole website. I would much rather click a button and get a summarized version from something like AI. But what if we were able to put our message in video? So instead of you just reading the website about how great of a realtor I am, with me being able to articulate my key value propositions of what I can bring to the table. So that's ultimately how I do it. And again, in various forms, because we do online trainings, we do live trainings, but a big push is know your product, know the value propositions you're delivering, and then broadcast the message in a strategic way.
And I've been a managing broker since 2009. I've been a realtor since 1999. And I always felt like the purchase agreement and the listing agreement, along with all the addenda, were important tools in my toolbox. And I need to know precisely how to use the tools in my toolbox. As a managing broker, I was surprised by how very frequently home sellers and home buyers would have disputes because neither real estate agent actually knew what was in the purchase agreement and how it all interacted. My wife Lisa and I love watching inspirational movies about sports, like an underdog kid who makes it onto the team and then suddenly helps win the championship. Nobody gets to that championship without repeated reps practicing the basics until the basics become second nature that they don't have to think about, so that when they're in a crunch moment, if they're on the football field, for example, a guy's coming to tackle them, they have in their mind all the ways in which they can zig and zag, how they can slow down or speed up. They know that. They don't have to think about that. So now they can just be looking at that other player and intuiting, how do I need to respond in this situation? And I marvel at how little attention is given to understanding the contracts first and foremost, and how often agents get flustered by not knowing that it cannot be the case that the end of a home inspection period could fall on a national holiday. That can't happen. It can't be the case that in different states, it might vary from state to state, of course, but the inspection window can't end on a Saturday or a Sunday. The inspection window is automatically moved to 5 p.m. the next business day. And agents are calling each other on Saturday evening saying, oh, we got to get this all wrapped up. It's like, have you even read the purchase agreement? Don't you marvel at that?
It's one of those things that becomes a frustration for sure, because in many instances, the way that I look at it is that I have no problem working side by side with my fellow realtors to be able to do what I need to do so we could work together rather than as opposing forces, to say, hey, you're representing your client, I'm representing mine. Our goal is to get them to the finish line and to make sure that we're doing our job to take care of our clients. But when a real estate agent does want to plant their flag to act as if they know, when you already know that they don't, that's definitely an issue as well. And just to simply learn the contract even more, I obtained my certification with the state of California in order to be an approved trainer of our contracts. And again, I give respect to Joe Limo for this, because him and I now hold one of the best classes in the state of California. We can't speak for any other state contracts, but I don't think that there's a better contract training than ours. And this is feedback that we have heard from hundreds of real estate agents who have actually came to our classes, because it's not just the mechanics and the wording and the phraseology, but we incorporate the conversations that we have with our clients, because a big part of it is sales. And the more that you know the contracts, the easier that I feel it makes it to work with your clients anyways, because it gives you the game plan. The game plan is already within the four corners of the pages.
And it's so true. These purchase agreements, I'm sure it's been that way for you for 20 years, for me, 25 years. When I started, the listing agreement was 2 pages and the purchase agreement was 4. Now, how many pages is the listing agreement? How many pages is the purchase agreement? How many addenda are mandatory? I mean, these are massive contractual obligations that our clients are putting themselves into, and we owe them that we should know that paperwork inside and out.
I think a big part of it comes down to what's our value. If we don't understand the contracts in which we're having our clients sign, and don't get me wrong, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not sitting there trying to interpret, I'm not trying to interpret what I'm explaining to my clients, but it's very important that we have a keen understanding of the specifics, because then when we work on behalf of our client, just makes it easier. But more importantly, I feel like it helps us establish our value with our clients. And that's a key thing, because I think moving forward, it's something that I talked about at NAR years ago. I was talking about the amount of money, billions of dollars being invested into Wall Street. And all of these companies were wanting to come on out, and they were wanting to replace real estate agents. And some commercials online were even being promoted, pretty much saying real estate agents are now worthless because of our tech. And so it's even more of a responsibility for us to look at it to say, well, how do I establish my value and how do I keep it? How do I make it so that way, no matter what technology's hitting the market, that I can stand in front of my clients and say, nope, this is why you want to hire me?
I fully agree. And back when I was newer to the business, and probably about the time you were coming into the business, these tech platforms, the third-party platforms, Realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia, they were all coming onto the scene with billions of dollars of investor money behind them. And agents were freaking out about, like, oh my gosh, if our consumers now have all the information, what are we to do? And I was still new to the business, but I was saying to them, I was never the gatekeeper of information. I was always the guide on the journey that they're taking to either find the right next home or to sell their current home. And so knowing that paperwork inside and out, knowing your local market area, understanding the trends and the economic pressures that are impacting pricing, all these things that we have to really take time to become yet again refreshed on. We have to stay current on this stuff. That was really my value proposition, was that I was helping navigate a journey with people. I was guiding them on this journey that they were going on, and they were looking to me to have a real solid working knowledge of that purchase agreement, of the local trends. I'm sure you've seen all that as well.
For sure, without a doubt. And I think that as technology has evolved, one of the key things is that we can leverage it as real estate professionals in order to communicate more clearly to our clients and use the resources in order to establish top of mind awareness. I want an easy life. I don't want to have to overcomplicate things. I don't want to have to work harder than what I need to. I feel that early in my business career, it was all about who's going to put in the most hours, who's going to show up earlier, who's going to leave later. And that's what I thought was an exchange for success. And then I learned that that's not what it's about. It's about an efficiency factor. Who could be most efficient in communicating with their clients and staying connected? And that's when we had the popularity of things like social media. I just jumped on that to take advantage of the fact that I could build my base of clients and go on out, stay connected, stay in front of. And when people hear the word real estate, they think of me. And then that helps put me in a position where now I got a consistent flow of business. The majority of my business comes by way of referrals. And for the longest time, I would do all the other things to generate business, whether it was cold calling clients, hitting the expired leads, which I know a lot of people say, hey, they don't like that, but pick up the phone, make those calls, contacting FSBOs, for sale by owners. And then even if I would call these people, they're being bombarded by 100 other agents. I was able to still do things to stand out, because if I was to call you, Kevin, and say you were a FSBO, you're already angry. You're mad at the fact that I'm not a buyer and you're another real estate agent who's calling me. But I might ask you a question just to say, hey, Kevin, have you identified a particular time, maybe a date, where you're going to draw a line in the sand to say, if I don't sell my home on my own, then maybe I might look at pursuing the services of a real estate professional. And then most of the time, a seller would say, a couple of weeks out, not a problem. Here's
Great
what I'd like to
question.
do. The number that I just called, Kevin, which I already know it is because you have it online. The number I just called, is this your cell phone number? Yes, it is. Perfect. Here's what I'll do. When we get off this call, I'm going to shoot you over a text. In my text, I'm going to include a video. The video is going to give you a breakdown, give you an introduction to myself. And this is an opportunity for me to identify a couple of key things that my team and I do in order to bring value to our clients. And then if there's any opportunity for us to have a discussion later down the line, hopefully this helps make me stand out from my competition. And then what I do is I text you a 30-second, 60-second video. You click on it and I say something like, if you're watching this video, chances are you're interested in either buying or selling real estate. Hi, my name is John Reyes, and I'm a real estate broker who services the Southern California real estate market. Just by way of intrigue, the consumer will watch the video. Oh, this is a guy that contacted me. Oh, it's a real estate agent. I'm selling a house. It just correlates and makes sense. I should watch this video. And then if I am very succinct in my value propositions to my client, I'm now a standout. And then I'll say to you, Kevin, after I get your permission to send the video, and hey, Kevin, I tell you what, if you don't mind, I'd like to follow up with you, and I'll touch base with you maybe in a week or so just to see how things are progressing. And if you could sell your home on your own, by all means. I mean, there's no reason to pay for services if you don't need them, but at least I could just touch base with you and find out. That sound fair? And most of the time the client's like, okay, right? Then when I follow up with you, hey, Kevin, this is John Reyes. I'm the real estate agent that sent you the video last week. Did you happen to have a chance to see that? The change in which people respond. Oh, hey, John, actually, I did watch your video. Opposed to, why are you calling me again? And again, working smarter, working more efficiently, so that way I can enhance our chances of just having a dialogue. And that's all I want. That's what I need. So that same logic applies whether you're calling expired leads, meeting somebody at an open house, or a referral. It's how do you get yourself in front of people, let them see your face, let them hear your voice, and not everybody wants to jump on a FaceTime call the first time you reach out to them.
No, but what you're doing does make you stand out. And from my experience, I'm aware of at least two ways that you're standing out. First, you're actually sending them something that is of value immediately after that call, which you and I know that 9 out of 10 agents won't take the time to actually send them something of value. They'll just move on to the next person. They have this mistaken belief that they are only looking for people who are at the bottom of the funnel. But the reality of it is, all the people at the bottom of the funnel, you talked to them 3 weeks ago, but you didn't do anything to nurture or convert that opportunity. Secondly, I feel that video is so powerful because, unlike the written word, which can be very compelling as well, a video has a way of creating know, like, and trust very quickly. And then when you follow up with that person, they're not going to be rude to you because they feel like they have already met you. You've already met them. Even though you haven't seen a video of them, their mind is sort of the notion like when we're watching television. We have our favorite TV shows and we feel like we know these people, but they've never met us, but we feel like we have a relationship. Video is so powerful that way. Now, you have a new book out. I want to talk about that. It's called 21 Strategies. Is what you just shared with us one of those strategies?
It is. It is, definitely. The idea and concept behind this book that we wrote called 21 Strategies, and I just happen to have a copy of it right here,
Fantastic.
is that I have relationships with some of the best producing agents in the country. And for me, it's not just numbers and metrics. It's really about how people go about running their business, because I know some really high producers, and then I know some people who've done really well, taken their money, invested it right, and now they get a kickback and then enjoy the spoils of their labor. But it's all tied to real estate. And so this concept is that I have 21 leaders who share their key takeaways for success, because as I stand in front of an audience, I have definitely felt that I have a big bit of a hack on the system. I've learned to invest in real estate because of people I've been connected with. I didn't come up with these ideas or learn the specifics on my own. I get out of my way to ask my friends, hey, how did you do this? How did you buy one house and turn that into buying five or to buying 10 or closing over 100? And so as I stand in front of these agents, I just thought, well, what if I was able to share the knowledge of my friends, some of the best? And I have these interviews. I have a consolidated chapter for every person. So they share their story. They share the grit and the strife that it took for them to be successful. Everybody's different. We talk about daily routines. It's not all the same. So we can read a book that says you have to wake up by 4:30 in the morning and you got to work. The beautiful thing about this book is that some people wildly successful say, I have no structured agenda. Here's what I do. I get a pen and a notepad and I do a checklist every day of the key things that I need to take care of. And I'm like, that's awesome. So every chapter, I have 3 key takeaways per speaker. And then there's a QR code. So you can scan the QR code and then you can go directly to our site, 21strategies.com. And this is available for anybody. You can watch the interviews with these 21 amazing practitioners. And just to kind of give you an idea, one particular real estate broker in our book, Kelly, she talks about, I knew that I had some challenges when I made $750,000 and I was still broke in 1 year, by the way. I was still broke and I was dealing with tax issues. And I was like, this is not the way. I can't live like this. And then Kelly shares her story about how she's built an amazing empire of real estate investments. And those are really the key things that I wanted to share with agents, is that we're in such an amazing business. You can do so much. And it's just about you learning the opportunities and then identifying the tactics, the strategies, and the ways that you can go about being wildly successful in this business. So yes, 21 strategies. We have a hardcover version. That's the white one here. Soft cover version here. And the book is only $21 as well. So, it's a play on 21. And how did we come up with 21? I love Vegas. It's one of my favorite places to go. And so I always thought that I was going to be a 21 like master player. And after playing quite a few times, I realized, no, that's not the case. But 21 Strategies, that's it. And it is ready to go. We are officially, if I'm not sure when this is coming out, but it is officially being announced on January 1st. We're so excited. And Christoph Chu, one of the most renowned real estate agents in the industry, he's been featured on by Forbes, the LA Times, and New York Times, had his own TV show called LA Living. he was so gracious to not just be a contributor, but also to write the forward in my book as well.
He is legendary. I used to be a managing broker, executive vice president at Caldwell Banker, and I mean, he's the guy. He's amazing. How did you get all these brilliant people to be so candid with you about their own struggles and their own tribulations? And if I may, I'll just share a little further notion why I asked that question. Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to struggle ourselves? I mean, you said you learned everything about investing in real estate, not because you kept making those mistakes, but because other people shared with you. And you've had these people share their personal struggles, the challenges that they went through, the low valley, and then they rose up and climbed the mountain. But that requires an enormous amount of candor on their part, which can only be built on an enormous amount of trust in you. How did you pull that off? It's awesome.
Well, thank you for that. And you know what? That's very important. That it was very important for me, and I appreciate so much that you acknowledge this. It was very important for me to have conversations where these contributors would feel comfortable enough with me to share things that they may normally not talk about. And in fact, in many instances in the interviews, I have had contributors say, this is something I don't talk about very often. But that's why for me, it was so important about having such established relationships with these people. Every one of these people I could refer to as a friend.
Mm.
It's not just somebody whose numbers are great on the board. They're people that I have connected with for years. And we have seen each other grow, whether that be by them building and establishing relationships with their spouses and kids. And I think that was one of the key things for me, is that it really had to be people that I had a connection with. And as we dove into the interviews, I was quite surprised about the candor. I was quite surprised about the vulnerability that was shared, and I felt it in the moment. And I always had to kind of like force myself to take a step back to not get lost in that, because it's easy to get lost and caught up in that. And I felt like I just had to stay focused on our conversation, which was definitely natural, but at the same time, I had a specific intent to draw from them as best as I could. So I think it was a culmination of just comfortability, familiarity, and prompting with the right questions to get them to open up.
And they had an enormous amount of trust in you.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's awesome. I'm excited to read the book. So before we close, I want to ask one of my favorite questions. Knowing now what you know now, what do you wish you knew 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago when you got into this business?
Besides buying Bitcoin way back in the day, what I would say is this, is that I would recommend to anybody is to get connected with power players early, and don't come into it with an attitude of what can you give me? What can I learn from you? But come into it with what can I do for you? So for example, Kevin, if I was in your market, I would ask to do anything to shadow you. If I was just getting into this business, and with total sincerity, I would say, if you want me to go grab your coffee and wash your car, by all means, I'll take care of it. Because at the same time, I'm willing to do whatever is needed in order for me to learn as much as I can, as quickly as I can, from those who are doing amazing things. I went to a 4-year university right out of high school. I graduated number 13 in my class with a cumulative GPA, not even knowing that I was that high. If I would have known, I think I would have fought for top 10. I didn't learn that until my last quarter of high school. I went straight into a 4-year university, and I look at that as my last quarter in college. I told my professor, I learned, and some people aren't going to like the fact that I say this, but don't take this the wrong way. I told her, my business professor, who I had for multiple classes, I said, Dr. Alvarez, I feel like I learned more from Barnes and Nobles than I did from my 4 years at this university. And I thought she was going to be upset about it. And she says, oh, I could completely agree. I completely understand what you're saying. And I thought, okay, she's not mad that I said this. And it's because I was getting out of my way to read every business book that I could get my hands on. Every business book that I saw at Barnes and Nobles, I would buy. And I was an avid reader. I would go nuts with it. And I know you are too, Kevin. So, yep, exactly. So
Yeah,
I
you
could
know,
totally connect and
I,
relate with that. But wow, see, look at that. But
I love my books.
it's one thing for us to read the books, but it's another thing to be side by side with somebody who's done it, somebody who's going through it at that very moment. And that's what I feel like is a hack in anything that we want to learn. That's what it would be.
One of the things that you said but didn't say in the most transparent and clear way is that, because I've seen this, the people who climb the highest have their ego the lowest. They're willing to be a student of somebody else. They're willing to take direction, follow through based on somebody who has been there before saying, you can do whatever you want, but if I were you, I'd focus on this. And they just simply say, I'm not going to ask any questions about it. I'm just going to do what you tell me to do. I've seen those people rise from brand new to the business, new to their local market area, earning over $600,000 in their first 24 months in the business. I've seen other people whose egos weren't low to the ground, who were sort of like, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, I'm a professional. It's like, okay, yes, you are a professional. However, come back in 12 months and tell me what you succeeded doing with that approach. And then they are like out of the business or coming back a little bit more humble. I feel like people who are willing to take their ego out of the equation are at an unfair advantage to those people who feel entitled to some type of success that they haven't yet earned.
And I feel like you hit the nail on the head, and I can completely agree with what you're saying. I learned how to make cold calls and call expireds and FISBOs because of another gentleman out of St. George, Utah. He is one of the top real estate agents in the state, making millions of dollars in commissions, millions every year. And he had said to me, he said, I'll show you exactly what I do. You're not a competitor of mine because you're in Southern California. Now, if you were in my market, I wouldn't share this, but he said, this is how we do it. And he invited me to his office, and I flew out there because this is where I'm willing to invest my money. Look, people want to spend a ton of money for other ways to learn, right? If you go to a university, you're going to drop big dollars right now. I took a flight, stayed in a hotel, went there, and I learned directly from him. And I saw how he made the calls every morning, the conversation patterns. And I thought I could do that. So then we went to dinner, and then I shared with him my background of sales, and we came up with more of a formulated process about some things that he could implement. But then for me, my key takeaways were, oh, I know what I could do here. And that's how I started taking 5 listings a month, was based just off of calls every day, 28 minutes a day, Monday through Friday. 125 minutes, right? What is that? 30 times 5, 150 minutes of an investment per week in order to generate 5 listings. That's what we all want. That's pretty dang solid.
Very solid. Very solid. John, you and I could talk all day. I love talking with you. Thank you for sharing everything. Let's give people another way to reach out to you. Again, you've got your new book. Let's talk about where they can go and connect with you there.
Yep, 21strategies.com. And then you could also watch the interviews. Don't have to pay for anything. You can watch the interviews with all of the contributors, which is great. And then also on Instagram, that's what I tend to be most active on. That's at JD Reyes01. And you guys are more than welcome to connect with me, shoot me a message. If there's anything that I could do to be helpful, then I am more than willing to do so, because ultimately that's how we all lift up each other, how we all connect. And then for brokers and managers that are watching this, I'm always doing trainings, whether that be live and in person, online Zoom, but they're my favorite things to do. For me, that's even more fulfilling than selling houses.
So I want to give everybody those opportunities again. So on Instagram, it's at JD Reyes, which is spelled JDREYES, the numbers 01. And 21 Strata Keys is the numbers 21 Strata, STRATA, keys, Keys.com, 21stratakeys.com. John, thank you so much for being with me today. I could just pick your brain for hours. I hope I'll have that opportunity to have you back on again.
No question. Thank you very much, Kevin, and we appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.